Hi, and welcome to the 2020 Economic Preparation and Recession channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Well, today I just want to talk about one thing, and this was an article that was in theguardian.com, published on Friday, July 10th, 2020. And that's a UK newspaper. It says, "How will we know the U.S. economy is recovering?" And they give some signs here that you will know, 7 key metrics that you will know the U.S. economy is recovering. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that the U.S. economy is not going to recover, but we're going into what's called an economic reset or a depression for a time or period that could last upwards of 5 to 10 years. Okay, and this only happens in American history every 50 to 100 years, but we're on that 100-year cycle come next year. So here's the 7 things that theguardian.com says that the 7 key metrics to look at to say the U.S. economy could be recovering. Number 1, the TSA traveling. Every day, the Transportation Security Administration publishes data on the number of travelers passing through the nation's airports. Specifically through the gateway city airports like New York City, JFK. As you know, they're having a lot of international flights. Or Miami, they handle a lot of international flights. LAX, and so on and so forth. So you can see the numbers are way below than when they were compared this time last year, obviously because of the sickness bug. But they're rising, and when you see those numbers start to catch up, you'll know that the travel business is back in business, which means that business is back in business. Well, let me just debunk that. The problem with that is that even though the numbers are rising, most of that's essential travel, meaning that people that have to travel for a family member or for work related. Nobody's just traveling tourism to Cancun or wherever. They're not doing it for fun. And many times the numbers are inflated because of that situation. So travel revenue is down, even though the numbers are up. Airlines are still losing money. They're filing for bankruptcy. Like I said yesterday, United Airlines is filing for bankruptcy. Delta said they may have to lay off employees come October. And so things are not looking good in the travel industry, in the airline industry in Pacific. The second thing, Open Table reservations. Open Table is an app, a mobile app that you can get for Android and iPhone where you can book reservations at restaurants. It's not only tracking this data, but it's publishing results in a few select cities every week. The bad news is that the traffic is off about 60% when compared with the same period last year. The good news is that these numbers is finally rising, obviously due to reopenings across the country. And let me just say, the good news is that there is some good news, that some restaurants and small businesses are opening up, albeit at limited 50% capacity, especially in the Northeast and in the Deep South. But given the number of cases, will these numbers fall? Restaurant bookings means consumers are spending their money, and when consumers get back to spending, the economy will get back to growing. My question with that is that what consumer, quote unquote, is going to want to go into a restaurant, risk getting sick, okay? Whether having their food being prepared and brought to them, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes in the kitchen, or how much infection proof that is going to happen. So nobody's going to risk doing that going into the thing. So takeout is going to become the name of the game, and no restaurant I know of can survive on just takeout only menus for a long time. Now they're saying small business optimism. Okay, now that they've given, all these businesses have been given these loans, these PPP loans as they like to call it. Well, let's face it, a loan is something that you have to be paid back, whether it's a student loan, a credit card loan, or a loan from the bank, a business loan. It has to be paid back eventually, or otherwise you go belly up. So it's great that they have this optimism and everything is rosy and there's a pot of rainbow at the end of the goal. But at the end of the day, small businesses are still laying off people. Small businesses, which employ more than half of the U.S. workforce, so 30 million small businesses, are not recovering. There is no optimism. They're still worried about how they're going to pay their bills, or if they're going to get in trouble for using the PPP loan for something other than payroll and operating expenses. So that's the truth, okay? I'll tell you the truth. The next thing is they're saying that ISM and manufacturing services index is going, they're leveling off, that companies are manufacturing and planning on buying things from other countries. That's not true. We have a huge trade deficit with China. As a matter of fact, China and U.S. relations have never been more tense The trade deal, phase 1, phase 2, is all off the table now. You notice how the media have never mentioned that on CNBC or MSNBC or BBC or ABC. They have not mentioned anything about no trade deal. There is no trade deal. It's off the table completely. Relations have severed between the United States and China, and the tariffs and all that have been just something in the water. The next up is the chemical activity. That has been off the chain. That has not been the more chemicals purchased, the more stuff made. Okay, maybe we are buying more things, but the question is, how much and how fast can we buy this stuff? And we cannot buy that much stuff, being this much in debt. The housing market has crashed. They're saying the good news is that even with the sickness, the housing market is staying at the same levels it was last year, and many people are refinancing the house or taking out a line of credit because the interest rates are so low on that stuff. The problem is that there's not a lot of new home housing, single family housing starts, only pre-planned apartment condoplexes and multiplexes. Okay, that is the problem, and the housing market is starting to crash in San Francisco and other places. Rents and housing prices are dropping. So as you can see, this economy is not recovering. Okay, and these are just the signs that they mentioned in this article that the U.S. economy is recovering. The good news, I'll give you some good news. The good news is that people are still willing to go out and venture out and spend at least a little bit of money on essential supplies and on essential trips. So that is the good news. And the good news is that the dollar still has some purchasing power. The cash dollar has some purchasing power, even though inflation is creeping up in food and in supplies and other things. So that is the good news. The bad news is that hyperinflation is coming on the dollar. The bad news is that the U.S. economy is not recovering. It's all based on false information. And unfortunately, the bigger cities like New York City, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, they're going to feel it first when this depression gets going. And people are going to want to leave the cities and head out to the suburbs and hinterland and rural lands. But by then, it will be too late, because so many people will be trying to access the limited resources of food, water, security, medicine, and supplies. It's just going to be a disaster. It's going to be a jungle out there. And so that's what they're trying to avert. The U.S. government and other entities are trying to avert, because their main concern is maintaining order and calmness. That is one of the primary functions of government, is to maintain order and calmness in the people. Unfortunately, when the U.S. people, citizens such as you and I, realize that we're not coming out of this recession and entering into a deeper depression come 2021, that's when the panic is going to set in on the streets, on Main Street, and Wall Street's going to panic too, because once the stock market goes down completely, down to where it should be down to, valued at around 10,000 or 9,000, then that's when things are going to get chaotic and crazy. So continue to prepare, and that's the message that I want to bring you today, that the U.S. economy is not recovering, but continue to prepare. As a matter of fact, you can buy a package of heirloom seeds for less than you can a family meal at KFC, $30 or whatever it costs a family meal now. You can buy a package of heirloom seeds that you can grow your own watermelons, cantaloupes, carrots, potatoes, whatever, on your porch and in your patio. You don't have to have a big field or anything. Okay, you can learn how to do these things. You can buy a Berkey water filter, which you will need if the water pumps shut down in these cities and you can't get your own water, or a Life Straw water for under $200 and some of these things on Amazon and other places. Okay, so we have the means now. Use it wisely. Don't listen to other people who are telling you that this thing is going to recover when they see their neighbor out of a job. When you get out of a job, that's when we will know we are in a depression. Okay, so don't be fooled. Continue to stand for what's right. Continue to help this country by helping your neighbors and helping yourself to prepare for what is coming, because it's going to get ugly, folks. And we're just at the beginning, just the beginning tips of transformation. Okay, and so continue to prepare. Thank you very much, and I'll see you very soon.